How significant is your tax burden? You have no idea. The truth is, it's way bigger than you think. To illustrate, let's use an example of a guy making $100,000 a year. And we'll start in a place we see on our pay stubs, income taxes. The highest federal income tax rate for an individual is over 39%, but most of us pay far less than that. In this example, with deductions, the federal income tax rate for this gentleman ends up being 18%. Now, state income taxes vary quite a bit across the country, from 0 to over 13%. To be conservative, I'll assume a 5% state income tax rate. And let's make sure we don't forget about the 7.65% we all pay in Medicare and Social Security taxes. Which gets us here. Before your earnings make it to your checking account, over 30 grand goes to government. If only it ended there. We all need a place to sleep, right? Which makes your home a great place to tax. And we all pay property taxes, whether you own a home or not, because if you rent, your landlord passes on this expense to you. These taxes also vary across the nation. Studies estimate that property taxes as a percentage of income run an average of 5%. And wham, just like that, another $5,000 comes out of your pocket. You also need to buy things like food, clothing, and a car to live, which makes living another great place to tax, in the form of sales taxes. Now, sales taxes can be over 10% in some areas, but I'll use a 9% rate here, and I'll assume that our guy spends 50% of his disposable income on taxable items, which means another $2,900 will be forked over to government as you spend your money. Now let's turn to a place where the largest hidden tax burden exists for individuals. It's a place you have ignored until now. Remember that trip to the store to buy food and clothes? Well, sales taxes aren't the only tax you pay when they ring you up. Because you see, there's a hidden cost in the price of every good and service you buy. The federal corporate income tax rate is 35%. Add an average state rate of about 6%, and you've got a roughly 41% corporate tax rate. Now, companies get deductions too, so let's whittle that 41% down to what studies suggest is closer to 23%. Companies, including small businesses, also pay Medicare, Social Security, unemployment, property, sales, and a variety of other taxes as well. And we can't forget about the cost of government regulation. Studies peg that cost at just over $2 trillion annually. That's over 10% of our GDP. Add it all up, which is pretty tough to do because the cost is so high and the rules so complex, and studies estimate the cost of business taxes and massive regulation at anywhere from 20 to 35% to the cost of everything we buy. This all gets passed on to you in the form of higher prices. So back to our example. If we add the lower end, 20%, to the cost of the goods and services we buy, that's another almost $13,000 that passes from you to government. We started this journey with $100,000, and over half of our earnings ended up in government's hands. It's no wonder people are struggling. It's no wonder the middle class is losing ground. If you're okay with such a heavy tax burden, we can just keep doing what we're doing. But I'm not comfortable here, because this burden impacts the ability of families to improve their lives. It crushes the American dream. So how do we dig ourselves out of this hole? Here's two things working in tandem that can reduce the tax burden and give middle-class families the opportunity to improve their lives. First and foremost, we must reduce the size and scope of government. We have built a monster that is not sustainable. Government's gotten involved in virtually every aspect of our lives, from school lunches to the types of light bulbs we use in our homes to our relationships with our doctors. The list keeps growing. And you know, even with all the taxes we pay, that's still not enough to feed the beast, because our federal government continues to borrow trillions of dollars to continue its spending. And the same thing is happening on the state and local levels. And here's the second thing we have to do to create more opportunity for middle-class Americans. We have to significantly scale back the level of regulation placed on business. And understand something, I'm not talking about zero regulation. The truth is, some people will rob, cheat, steal, and pollute to make an extra buck. So regulation is important, but regulation has gone overboard over the years. So much so that we've made American businesses less competitive. In today's global economy, you don't want to do that. Conversely, what works is positioning American companies to be more competitive than ever, because the most significant advantage we have is the intelligence, work ethic, and entrepreneurial spirit of the American people. We're crippling that advantage through excessive regulation. Here's what happens when we make American business more competitive. We sell more products across the globe. Hence, our companies grow and hire more workers. American innovation and efficiency raises living standards by bringing the world better products. When our companies succeed, more middle-class Americans have the opportunity to build better lives. More Americans get to pursue the American dream. Now, here's something that may surprise you. The most grief I get from this message is not from people living off of entitlement programs. It's from those at the top of the food chain who benefit most from the current system. They don't want massive government spending to end because, you see, those folks understand that the larger government is, the more cash they can skim from the system. They've tricked folks at the bottom into believing that big government is good for them. It's not, because it robs those families of the opportunity to build better lives and ensures the folks at the top stay at the top. Intelligence, ingenuity, perseverance, and a strong work ethic are America's competitive advantage. If you want to control more of your dollars and want to give more Americans a fighting chance, we have to unlock our incredible potential by putting government back in its place so our businesses and our people can feel free to run circles around the workforce of the rest of the world. Do not lose faith in our country because extraordinary potential still exists within us. We just have to get out of our own way.